When I was in my undergrad at Indiana University, I started making arrangements of pop songs that I was into at the time. And I found that arranging, recording, and then shooting video to post online kind of kept me sane in practicing for orchestral auditions and everything that was to come later in my graduate studies and beyond. So creating these YouTube videos was just a really fun side project for me when I was in my early 20s.
What kind of strings do you play on? What kind of rosin do you use? I'm not warmed up yet.
Some of them come back to haunt me now. My name is Steve Metcalf, and I'm the principal bassist of your Colorado Symphony. I fell in love with the bass when I was about 10 years old. The bass is the fundamental of all music. Without it, music feels empty, and I love being able to fill in that space. I was in I think it was Mars Music in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was playing piano at the time. I saw this 4-string instrument, a bunch of them, all on a wall. And for some reason, it just really caught my eye how there were these 4 fat strings on these electric basses. And I really wanted to play it. And when I got to middle school, there was nowhere to play the electric bass, so they gave me this upright bass. And so I've been playing that ever since. I've recorded audio since, I was probably 8 or 9 when I got my first Fostex 4-track tape recorder. And I started looping myself, even back then. You know, I've always been interested in audio, and video came much later, but the marriage of those two for me became a really fun, creative endeavor that I derived lots of pleasure from. When you're arranging covers of popular songs, which usually have some type of vocal element, you have to figure out a way to copy that or mimic it in some way. As a bass player, it's particularly difficult because playing up high is challenging, physically and technically demanding. And so there are a lot of different problems that you have to solve. And the challenges of recording so many bass tracks is just a total nightmare. Having to play perfectly in tune, all with the same, every track has to have the same articulation. There's just so many different variables that create a challenge, which I actually think made me a better bass player. My teacher in my undergraduate at Indiana University, he always used to say, you want to feel bass, not hear bass. So that's kind of my mantra in being a bass player in an orchestra. So anytime you come see the Colorado Symphony, or any orchestra for that matter, when you feel the pit of your stomach start to kind of drop out, focus your attention on the bass section. They're probably playing in the lowest register, which creates just this wall of sound. The bass, in my opinion, is incredibly demanding on the body for a number of reasons. First of all, its size. You can see that it's huge. It's larger than most people. Getting around the instrument requires a lot of physical movement. And so this can lead to, a number of issues in the body. And to counter that, you kind of have to be in good shape. The way I like to take care of myself and my body, I love to climb. I love skiing. Climbing in particular is antagonistic, meaning basically opposite movement. And so when I'm climbing, I'm able to kind of undo all of the daily stresses that orchestra requires of me. I have recently, in the last year and a half or two, gotten into ultra running. I've run a couple of 50K races in the mountains, which comes out to about 32 miles. My plan this past summer, was to run a 100K, which is 62 miles. And then I ended up breaking my toe on a training run. So I'll have to do that next summer. And eventually, I want to get into running 100-mile races if my body will allow for it, but that's a long ways off. So on a typical week with the orchestra, I'll probably be playing the bass about 35, 40 hours a week, which is actually significant. When I was auditioning for orchestras in grad school, I was playing about four hours a day, 6 days a week, so that's only 24 hours. Now, in order to stay in shape and be prepared for orchestra and actually do the job, it's many more hours on top of just the practice. Playing in a large orchestra is what I like to describe as being a part of the biggest team sport. In the Colorado Symphony, we have 81 full-time musicians, and we all need to be on the same page. We all have to work towards the same goal. And to me, that is incredibly gratifying. I think a lot of people in the world could learn and maybe benefit from that type of work. And it's really exciting to be a part of that on a daily basis. I think symphonic music has always been important, but it's particularly important today. It's the culmination of the human condition. You know, whether it's something haunting or frightening or joyful, something overwhelming in any capacity, is something that you can experience listening to an orchestra and being a part of an orchestra. So I think that being in touch with those emotions is really important to being a human, and being a human in the 21st century when we're constantly bombarded by our phones and all this other technology that distracts us from who we are. To be a professional musician, it means to perform every day. Every day you have to come into work and be on your A game 100% of the time. There's no room for anything less than that. My feelings in playing with the Colorado Symphony, they vary widely week to week. Some weeks I'm terrified to go into work, especially being the principal, and if there's a big solo, that can be pretty nerve-wracking. Other weeks can be a little more relaxed. It's the full range of the human condition for the audience and on stage. So for those of you who haven't been to see the Colorado Symphony, I would say this. You're missing out. There are so many moving parts and intricacies of an orchestra that can only be experienced when you're attending one live. You probably watch movies pretty frequently, and often those movies are scored with an orchestra. We actually do that. The orchestra is deeply ingrained in our current culture, and unfortunately it's sometimes thought of as something in the background, but it's very much in the foreground, especially when you come to a concert. And there's so many different things to focus on. I guarantee you will not be bored. Going to work every day and working with all of my brilliant colleagues is one of my favorite things to do. Putting these programs together for the Denver community it's my dream job, and I can't think of doing anything else with my life. And I'm so happy to be a part of this orchestral machine that contributes so much to the culture and the art scene in Denver.